a show with me, Adriana, and today I get to hang out with none other than Mari Castillo Avalos. She is a co-author of the Latinas 100 book. She is also a business advisor and certified financial counselor for the Small Business Development Center in 5 different branches. And I get the opportunity to have a conversation with her today about the story that she's publishing within the Latinas 100 book. And I want to say hello, Mari. How are you doing today?
Hello, Adriana. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. That's
Thank you for
awesome.
having me here.
Yes, welcome. I'm excited because a couple of weeks ago when you sent me your story, I really appreciated everything that you have to share. And before this conversation, before the cameras were rolling, we were talking about like what generation we were in, and I thought that you were in like in the younger generation, and you kind of are, but you were born like in the 80s, right? So then that puts me, we're only like 5 years apart.
Yes, that's correct.
Which to me,
So
you
young.
seem so much younger. To me, I don't know why I was thinking like you were still like in your 20s.
Thank you. I get that thought, but no.
Yeah, so that says a lot about me. You're like, you look super, 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 super young to me. So one thing that I appreciate about the story that you've shared for the book is that you share your experience of being a proud Mexican American and a you put here solopreneur Latina in the United States, and this is your story. And that's kind of like one of the things that you mentioned in the sentence. Can you share for our viewers a little bit about this story in particular, and then why you decided to share this story?
Actually, I thought about writing a book before, but only thought about it. So when you mentioned or invited me to write a book with you, I thought that was excellent. I have always wanted to share my story with others. I wanted to be able to help other young Latinas, and you were already doing it. So I said, yes, of course, I want to participate.
I was so happy when you said yes. So I was like, cool. As you know, whenever you start a new project, for those of you who are out there and are in the publishing industry or in the industry as a public speaker, as a coach, or as a counselor or a trainer, a lot of times when you start a new project, there's not a lot of people that join you. So the fact that you said yes, Mari, I was thrilled, and I was also really excited because although I've known you for a long time, I didn't really know your story. Like I
Yeah,
just kind of like, we were more like acquaintances, no? So when
yeah.
I
We have known each other for at least 30 years.
yes, yeah. So I don't know, for whatever reason. I mean, of course, I moved, right? When I was 17, I moved out of the Bay Area and I did my life in the military and did a bunch of other things. So that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, I didn't know the details. And as I was reading your story and your experience and how you grew up, a lot of things came together, and I was like, okay, that's one thing that I love about this project is that I get to read everybody's truth. I get to read everybody's story, or at least how they see the world. And that's always I'm really curious about that. And, at the end of the day, as you know, we're all pretty much the same. We all struggle with, I think, the same things. And I just love your story. You're so transparent. So I definitely appreciate you being a transparent writer. And by the way, you're a great writer too. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so share a little bit about growing up, your background and your parents, and yeah, just share.
Okay, so where do I start off? So basically, my story is that my parents were overprotective of me. So my parents, or yeah, both my mom and my dad wanted me to always be by my mom's side. And that was not always easy because I wanted to learn more about life and do other things in life, play sports in
Mhm.
school, or I have had other things in mind, but I wasn't allowed to. So I always had to be by my mom's side, and that was really hard.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine, like, not be like probably seeing the other kids do stuff and then you're just at home.
Yes.
Yeah, that must have been difficult. So how do you think that affected you later on in life?
Um, let me see here. Well, because I was overprotective, that actually made me want to do more in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted to learn more about um, opportunities that were out there that I can experience.
Mm-hmm. So it kind of gave you like that push, right? Like that,
Yeah.
even though even though you won't let me do these things, like when you could, right? You like ran and you're like, hey, let me do it, because you knew the difference between, well, let me share this. Is it sheltered? Maybe the right word? Were you like a little bit sheltered?
With all due respect to my parents, yes, a little sheltered.
Yeah, and then that isn't necessarily a negative thing, because I think that parents, as you and I know, that they do it out of love.
Correct.
Yeah, they do it out of love and protection, and that's wonderful, because hey, think about it, some kids don't even have that.
Mm-hmm.
you know so that's the way I see it. But then at the same time, it comes with consequences, right? And those consequences sometimes is, when you do have the opportunity to be outside of the sheltered environment, then you have a lot less experience.
Yeah, so my parents wouldn't allow me to do a lot of things, which I'm okay with it now. But I understood years later that it had to do with our culture, or my parents' culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wasn't allowed to play sports. I wasn't allowed to be with friends, sometimes even family. And so it was hard.
Yeah. What did you do to heal that? What did you do to overcome all of that?
I would spend time doing other things. So being in my house, I enjoyed decorating my room and redecorating my room again and again, and I really enjoyed it. And I would also spend a lot of time reading, and so that's why I enjoy reading a lot now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know you're an avid reader and stuff. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that helped you in school. And yeah. So, what did you do when once you left your parents' home? How old were you, and then what did you do after?
How old was I? I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I left my parents' house, and I was for a while with my son's father,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't work out. So I had to go back to my parents' house. I had my son Isaac, and I just had to figure out how to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes that's what we have to do as women. We just figure it out, you know. Um, I had a similar experience where I got pregnant. I wasn't married, but I was already 30. I wasn't, in my teens, but it was very difficult for me in just within the culture, because instead of there being joy that I was pregnant, there was a lot of condemnation and a lot of judgment from the people around me, and it made me feel so bad. But at the same, and I was 30 years old, girl. Okay, I had like I was making a great money. I was like, was in the middle of buying a home, and doing all these things that I thought would make me feel successful at the time. And then what was most painful is the judgment for me. And then I had one sister, my little sister actually, who's in her 30s now, and she was the only one that was happy for me. And I realized that later, it wasn't because my family didn't love me, or it was just because the culture didn't condone that. And I just had to learn to be okay with it, because at the end of the day, I was doing what was right for me. So do you feel like there was any type of judgment?
Oh, a lot. But what I kept telling myself was like, they don't know the whole story,
Yeah.
and I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure you were, because I was 17 when I left my house. So, you were just a couple years younger. También, it was like you had to do whatever you had to do. Um, I don't know. I don't know if some parents realize, yeah, that whatever, whether you shelter your children too much, or whether you don't shelter them, you it's like a hit and miss, right? Because you just don't know. It depends on like the child's temperament, and every child has their own little personality. So I've always believed, our parents do the best they can with the resources they have.
Yes.
And yeah, and I believe that. I think but we don't know that. I didn't know that when I was younger. I just knew that in my personal situation was that I didn't want to do anything that my parents were doing. I knew that much, and it sounds like for you it was more like dealing with, how do I spread my wings with,
Yeah.
respecting my family, because you love your family, but at the same time we don't live in Mexico anymore. Ya no vivimos en México en el rancho, ya vivimos en los Estados Unidos, que es otra cultura. I
Cierto.
mean, el americano, like the American people is different culture. Y as much as our parents want to say that, eres mexicana y naciste aquí, we're really not, because we live in two worlds. We are not accepted in Mexico, and we're not accepted here in the United States. We're like in the middle. We're like wobbling.
Yes.
And that's so difficult. Like, I don't know what your experience has been, but my experience has been like ni de aquí, ni de allá, and like you're in the middle. So then there's like an identity, issue también. So did you have a little bit of that maybe going on también, or?
So in regards to that, a ver qué te puedo decir. My parents have always been open to other cultures and other, just other races. And that was really nice. So I was actually, when I was young, I was friends with people that were Black, Asian. Our neighbors were also from Greece, white. And so I didn't see any of that racism until I was about 23 or 24.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking an income tax class, and one of my classmates said, "Oh, what grade did you get for your exam, your final exam?" And I think it was like a B+ or something. And they said, "Oh, not bad for a Latina." And I was like, what does that mean? Like, as far as I know my parents are from Mexico. I was born here, but I see myself as multicultural. I accept everyone. So what does not bad for a Latina mean? So I started reading more books about Mexico, and now I wanted to know what it means to be a Latina. And I was like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
So I started learning more about my parents' background. I started learning more about Mexico. And actually, thanks to him, I love Mexico more than I ever expected.
Yeah, it kind of, those things are hurtful, right? Pero a veces la gente ni se da cuenta que dicen esas cosas, like they're so lame.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. I have a good friend of mine que es de Israel, and we went to community college together. So when I moved here to Las Vegas, at work in the morning, I was working all day, and at night I was going to school. Girl, I've been in school for 20 years, okay? I still do classes. Right now I'm taking 2 classes at community college at night. So 20 years, okay? And because I'm a learner. And so my friend who ended up eventually being my roommate years later, we were doing this graphic design class, and this was, oh my God, 15 years ago. And she thought that I was white. So at one point, she turns to me while we're doing some computer work, and then she goes, "Oh, why is your last name Rosales? Did you marry a Latino person?" And I was like, "No, I'm Mexican." And she goes, "Oh, but that's okay. You can't really tell."
Oh, no.
I was like and then I was like, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, you don't look Mexican." And she's like, "It's okay, don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Why would I worry about it?" And in her defense, she really thinks different than most people, and we had a language issue because she was also learning English. Her first language is Hebrew. So maybe it got lost in translation or whatever, but she ended up being my roommate anyways, and we're still really good friends until now. But even that little comment right there, like, "Oh, don't worry about it," it says a lot about the kind of system that we live in, that sees Latinos as less than. And that's just the truth. I mean, nobody got to argue about that.
Falta de conocimiento.
Yeah.
Because es falta de conocimiento de parte de ellos.
Exactly. And if they really knew any better, people that say things like that would be like, Hey, Mexico is one of the richest countries in the world. You know, the richest people in the world live in Mexico, and it's the #1 tourist destination in the world. And they have pyramids just like in Egypt, and it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. The
That's where
problem
people want
is,
to retire.
but in most Americanos, they go retire. So there's more Americans going to Mexico to retire than there is people crossing la frontera ahorita, que supuestamente se están viniendo, but no, all the way people are going to Mexico. So it's like, it's so hilarious that people are not educated on the greatness and the awesomeness of, our very neighbor, Mexico. And then let alone our this amazing culture, and then sprinkle in the American awesomeness of, this American culture, and then combine. I mean, we're just as Latinas, we're a powerhouse, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that when we come to know that as Latinas, it's like, girl, we're unstoppable, which brings me to your essay and everything else that you were able to accomplish, even though at some point here you say that you didn't graduate high school, but then you went back and you got your diploma. So share a little bit
Yeah.
about that transition.
Yeah, so I wasn't even thinking about getting my general education diploma, at least not at that moment. And my colleague kept telling me, or coworker kept telling me, you have to go and just try it out, go take the exam. And finally I did. And the gentleman who was helping me in the counter, he said, oh, you'll pass it. You don't have to take the classes, just take the exam. And I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. And yeah, I passed it the first time.
Wow. Yeah. Because you were, I mean, all those moments and times at home reading, and you've always been really super smart. And like I said previous, that was the benefit of maybe being a little sheltered, is that you were
Yes.
educating your mind.
Yes.
So that's kind of interesting. So let me ask you this: if you well, you have a son, right?
Yes.
You have a son. So would you rather that he have a really, really, really good education, or that he'd be really, really smart with people and an entrepreneur and just like, hit or miss? What would you rather?
No, for him to the latter one.
Okay. Yeah. So
So for him to have good communication with people, to know about life itself, and to know how to communicate and everything.
yeah. And just like you, I teach my children that, and my husband's the opposite, where he wants school, school, school. You got to be super smart, because he's an engineer, and, he's working on his second master's. And for me, I'm like, I don't need any of that. Like, what you do need is to be able to shake somebody's hand and look at them in their eyes, and have a conversation, and understand understand the network, or the dynamics of a community, and understand people. Because when I remember I first met my husband, although his emphasis is on school, college, that's great, but that is not, for me, that I don't consider that success. For me, what I consider success is someone who is very happy being who they are, because they have connection with other human beings. And I really believe that only comes through, the hard knocks, if you will, the hard knocks of life. Which,
correct.
Yeah. And so I think everybody has, their different things. But I teach my children that, and my older son, unfortunately, he doesn't like school. I wonder why, right? But at the same time, he's really smart. He's really smart. So for him, I just tell him, hey, as long as he can communicate, he's a good communicator, and he can connect with another human being, that's success for me. And I think, and the reason why I bring it up is that I think for you, because of the upbringing, you were almost like robbed from that. Is that, and then, like I said, total respect to the way that your parents did, because they did the best they could, and they love you. But it's like, you do take that from your children, where you're left with you trying to figure it out, because there hasn't been a lot of that interaction with other human beings.
Correct.
Yeah. So So you do share about that a little bit in your story. And then you also share that you ended up attending college and then you got 2 computer degrees, not 1, but 2. And then you realize that, college was important to you, rightfully so, because by this time you had spent so much time reading and like developing your mind that those things would totally, intrigue you. Um, and then you had a situation like all of us did in the crisis of 2008. Share a little bit about that, because I had a crisis as well with my career at the time, and I think everybody had like different things going on. So do you want to share a little bit about what happened in 2008?
Sure. I was working in real estate, and everything was going okay. Not the best, but everything was going okay. And I had the opportunity to purchase a house. And someone told me, well, you should take the opportunity. You don't want to just pay rent, um, all the time. You want to eventually purchase a house and have your own place. I'm like, yes, of course I do, but I'm not ready. It was not the right moment for me because I wanted to continue my education. My dream was to get my bachelor's degree, to get my master's degree and move forward. And I was just so focused in education. But they kept repeating that. So eventually I purchased a house. I had it for maybe a couple of years. And then the financial crisis happened in 2008 and I lost my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people did. A lot of people, yeah, it was devastating. I lost my career because of it. And then I remember having to let 1,500 people go.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And then, all those people had mortgages that now they couldn't afford. So it was very rough, very, very rough. So what do you think that you learned from that experience? Like, what was like the major life lesson there?
Well, that's when I started becoming a minimalist. I realized that you don't need a lot in life. You just need, it's just you just need the essential stuff. It's okay to be a minimalist. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we're so the same in that.
And yes, and what we really need to know is who we really are and what we want in life.
I love that, girl. That should be the title of this essay. Okay,
Sounds good.
Who you really are. I love that because that's what it's about. Like forget all the material stuff and all the craziness, right? That people say you got to buy the house, you got to do this, you got to do this. Like no. Like I'm not a big pushing college on my older son. I was like no, but I've always been a life learner, and I think by the time I'm 52, I will finish my PhD. Like I already know that. Because I'm on track, I'm doing 1 class a year. It's like 20 years in college, dude.
Okay.
But it's not something that, for me personally, people do it like they knock it out in 7 years or whatever. And I'm like, I'm on the lifer plan because I want to learn what I need to learn at the moment. And, everybody has their own way. You had your own way, to come to the point where I love that message. Oh my God, it's such a powerful message, which is, you have to know who you are first and then forget all the junk.
That to me, you should know yourself before you get married, before you purchase a house, before you do anything big in life. You have to get to know yourself.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my God, that's so powerful. And then, in many ways, the way that you've lived your life has reflected that. And then also I could just imagine like all the judgment around you, right? Because en la cultura latina, la cultura latina, mira lo que está haciendo. Y no, ¿tú crees no se ha casado? ¿Tú crees no tiene novio? ¿Tú crees? Like, why? Because we don't fit the mold. Because we don't fit the mold of, es como que ya para que tuvieras 3 hijos, ya para que tuvieras casa, ya para, and I'm thinking, no.
Yeah. So in one of my English classes in college, one of our assignments was to write a story. We were supposed to pretend we're 80 years old and we're supposed to tell our story to our grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah. So that really made me reflect on the way I was living life.
Yeah, I got to do an exercise like that. I've done something similar, but not that one. That's a really good exercise, I think.
Yes.
because it does help you see, it does help you see so much. And, all the material things, they just disappear, you
Yeah.
know, all that, like, people who buy fancy cars, and all they do is work all day to pay that bill, and they never see their children, and then they wonder, oh, why is my child struggling? Oh, okay, because, I mean, there's always a reason, there's always a consequence for whatever choices you make. And, I believe that being a minimalist is what you call it, right? Being a minimalist, um, allows for us to have more time with our children, if that's what you value, because some people don't value that, and that's, without judgment, that is super cool too. If that's not your value, that's not up there, then, but I value that. So I'm like, oh, if I want to spend more time with my son, then I gotta make sure that I don't spend all day at work, which I did for many years, by the way, and until I had time for reflection. And
Yeah.
so how do you do reflection? Because my reflection is mainly in prayer and meditation. What about you?
I do pray. I love writing on my journal. I like to see how I'm growing from one day to another.
Hmm, I
Yeah.
love that.
So writing.
Oh, so that's why you're okay. Yeah, that's why your essay is super good. Hmm. And so in
Yeah.
your essay, you say the biggest goal in life is having a balanced life, and to help those around you, um, who want to be helped.
Yes.
Hmm.
So I have met people who are wealthy, and that being wealthy to me is not important, because I've seen people that well, how can I mention this, that they have money, but if I pay attention to the way they live life, a lot of them don't sleep 8 hours a day. They don't take care of their health. They are not really doing what they want to do. So what I have done is I know what my priorities are, and that's what I focus on.
Yeah. And I think, why you're a business coach, right? So I think, as a business coach, I mean, that also plays into a lot of what you're coaching, which is a life balance, where you can't call or consider, I mean, you can if you want, but, like, you can't consider success if, everything at home is failing, but then you're making a lot of money. Like, ¿cuál es el punto?
Yeah, you need to have a strong foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So, um, you know, you could be my business coach anytime, because you got that straight.
I
Right.
do.
I had gone through child custody, because I didn't stay with my son's father. And I remember hiring an attorney. When I hired the attorney, God bless her heart, her home life was so chaotic, and so when we would go to court, she never had my paperwork done.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I lost a lot of money. Like, $100,000 later, I realized that, the fact that I thought she was a big deal because she was like a hot shot attorney, turns out that no, she wasn't, because she was a disaster at home. So, needless to say, I mean, I didn't win every case, but then when I let her go and I basically told the judge she can no longer be my attorney, I represented myself. I went to school at night and I did the paperwork, and I can represent myself. I've been representing myself, which I'm really proud of, for the last 10 years in court to fight for my son, who's now 14, and have won every single case. And what I learned from that was that just because someone makes a lot of money doesn't mean that they have it together, which is exactly
Correct.
what you just said.
Yes.
Hmm.
And I have seen it myself.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, when, at least for in the United States, because it's, we live in a capitalist country where the accumulation of goods is considered success. I think that we can both agree that minimizing that consumption of just consuming, buying, shopping, 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 which I call it, like, it's like it's therapy for some people. The more they have, the better they feel, but it's only temporary, you
Yes.
know and then when you look at all facets in your life, like your health and your relationships, those are all part of success too. And we can spot people like that, and then kind of just say, oh, okay, I get guidance from this person. That's why I say you could be my business coach any day, because you have it all together in terms of what the foundation and the real foundation, and you can build upon that, right?
Yes.
So, and then you
And
also
actually,
meant, go ahead.
something that I like to do too is watch documentaries and talking about material stuff that affects the environment. That affects the environment. That affects. There's a documentary called True Cost,
Mm-hmm.
and that talks about how buying too much clothes or too much of this, how it affects the world. It's more than what we need,
Yeah.
and we don't need it.
Yeah, it's true. I just saw that documentary. I don't know if it was True Cost, but is this about the fashion industry? How the fashion industry? Yeah. Okay, so we must have been seeing it at the same time. The fashion industry is destroying the world.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I'm a documentary crazy person too. I didn't know. I didn't know that the fashion industry was the number one second polluter in the world next to oil. Can
Yes.
you believe it? In all those clothes, I mean, and then I started thinking, because I shop at H&M sometimes, and they're like, the reason why the shoes are like $20 or whatever is because, these companies are paying 25 cents for child labor in some country. I mean, it was crazy. You all
Yeah.
who are watching this, you need to go watch that documentary. But I love it. I love that you're bringing these things up, because it's when you are aware of these things, then you'll think twice before you buy that Mercedes or you move into that multi-million-dollar house that you think you need, when your marriage is falling apart and you don't have a good relationship with your children, yet you think those things are necessary. It's like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. But I love it. I love that you have talked about these things in your story, and you share, you're very transparent, and you're a good writer, and you share this. And then at the end of your story, you talk about, I'm going to read the last couple of sentences. So the last two sentences, you say, remember to follow your passion and allow yourself to be happy, which I love, because it's all about you being happy first, and then you can take care of everything else, right? Because if you're not good, then the world isn't good, right?
Yeah.
And then you say, we Latinas are beautiful inside and out. May we continue
Yes, we
being,
are.
yes, we are. And may we continue to be the best we can be to motivate other young Latinas. I love that. That is so sweet. That is so cool. I just have
Yeah.
to
So
say,
my teachers in school kept telling me time after time and time again, be the best you can be, be the best you can be. And that's what I've been repeating myself most of my life, be the best you can be. And by taking care of ourselves, we're not just taking care of ourselves, but we're also helping everybody around us.
mm-hmm.
So if I win, you win, we win.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so simple, how como que hay mucha gente que no agarra la onda en eso.
Yes.
They're like, oh, you want to help everybody, and then next thing you know, you're unhealthy. And it's like that personal unhealthiness is also affecting other people.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I get judged all the time over this. I mean, I'm, me enough. I think you've seen enough of these videos, right, where people are like, la gente me critica, dude. And I'm like, hey, I'm not even sorry, because I'm being myself, as you're being yourself by writing this essay, and you're saying, hey, this is the true me. This is what I bring to the world. This is my story, and this is how I can open up. And I know that, like, a young person that reads this is going to be like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, they're going to be that much smarter because they know who you are, and they know that you wrote something that was like from the heart, and you wrote something that was true to
Yes.
you. So I want to thank you, Mari, for being transparent, for being a great writer, for participating in this project, and just for being who you are. And hey, I hope to see you in volume 2 of the book for sure. And maybe you can share more about your business savvy, because I know we didn't really get into that, but you're also, entrepreneur and a mamapreneur, and a lot of business, and you do business coaching. So would love to hear more about that.
Sure.
But for this project, I am so grateful. Thank you so much. What are your final words for anybody watching?
I want to say that if I can do it, they can do it. Anybody can do it. If they want to be a doctor, if they want to do whatever they want to do, they can do it. But first, you have to have a balanced life.
I love that. Yes, true. Hey, maybe our next episode we do that on balanced life.
Yes.
That'd be a good one. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hasta la próxima. Nos vemos.